I almost ignored the warning signs, and it nearly cost me my life. It wasn't chest pain. It wasn't a heart attack. It was something silent, subtle, and terrifying. What I learned might just save your life too. Let me tell you what happened and what you must never ignore. The day everything felt off, but I didn't remember that morning so clearly. It was a quiet Tuesday. Nothing out of the ordinary. I got up around 7 a.m. like I always do. The sun was already up, birds chirping, the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. My wife was humming a tune in the background. Peaceful, normal. But inside me, something wasn't quite right. It wasn't pain. Exactly, it wasn't anything dramatic like you see in movies, no. Clutching my chest. No gasping for air. No dramatic fall to the floor, no. What I felt was off. I was unusually tired. Not the kind of tired you feel after a bad night's sleep. This was deeper, like my whole body was moving through wet cement. Even lifting my arms to brush my teeth felt like a chore. I chalked it up to poor sleep or maybe something I ate the night before. But as I walked into the kitchen, I noticed something else. I felt lightheaded. Not dizzy enough to fall, but enough to make me hold the wall for a second. My heart felt like it skipped a beat just one sand, then it sped up for no reason, but I waved it off. Probably just stress, I told myself. I'm not 25 anymore. That was mistake number 1. I went on with my morning, but the weirdness stayed. I wasn't short of breath, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my chest was tight. Not painful, just a pressure, like someone had placed a heavy book right in the center of it. I still didn't say anything. After all, who wants to seem like a hypochondriac? That was mistake number 2. Then came the sweat. I wasn't doing anything strenuous, just sitting at the table, drinking coffee and flipping through the news, but I noticed the back of my neck was damp. My shirt felt sticky, and my hands cold and clammy. My wife asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled and said, "Just hot, I guess." Inside, I didn't feel okay, but I didn't want to cause a fuss. I didn't want to worry her. I didn't want to believe that something could be wrong with my heart, so I went about my day. I drove to the store, but halfway there, my left arm felt heavy, not painful, just numb, like I'd slept on it wrong. Still, I kept driving. That was mistake number 3. Later that afternoon, I took a nap, a long one. When I woke up, the tightness in my chest had lessened, but the fatigue hadn't, and I had this strange feeling, deep down, that something was very wrong. But I kept quiet, and that night, I lay in bed wondering, what if this is nothing? But then again, what if this is something? I googled symptoms, but everything was vague. Could be anxiety, could be indigestion, could be fatigue, or could be my heart. That uncertainty, it's what kept me from calling the doctor. The next day, it happened again. That same off, feeling the pressure, the skipped beat, the sweat, and that's when it finally hit me. This isn't normal. I need help. When I finally went to the clinic and explained everything, the doctor didn't hesitate. He scheduled an immediate ECG and a stress test. And when the results came in, he looked at me and said, "You were a few days away from a major cardiac event. Your heart has been under stress for a while." I sat there in silence, shocked. I almost didn't go. I almost ignored the signs. I almost convinced myself that I was overreacting. But let me tell you, your heart doesn't always scream when it needs help. Sometimes it whispers. And if you don't listen to those whispers, they turn into a shout you can't ignore. Or worse, a silence that never ends. Looking back, all the signs were there. The unexplained fatigue, the lightheadedness, the cold sweat, the skipped beat, the strange pressure in the chest, the arm numbness, but none of them felt like classic heart problems. That's the terrifying part. Most people, like me, wait for chest pain before they act. But in many cases, especially for those of us over 60, the signs are much quieter, subtle, creeping, easy to dismiss, but deadly if ignored. I share this with you not to scare you but to open your eyes. If something feels off, listen to your body. Don't try to be brave. Don't convince yourself you're imagining things. Don't worry about looking dramatic, because trust me, your life is worth that phone call. If I had waited another day, or 2, I might not be here telling you this story, but I am here. And that means you still have time to pay attention, to take action, and to protect your heart before it's too late. Don't ignore the off days. Don't ignore the whispers. Your heart deserves better. Strange symptoms that weren't just aging. How I confused my heart's cries for normal signs of getting older. If I'm being honest, I think part of the reason I ignored the early signs was simple. I told myself, this is just what getting older feels like, and I believed it. That belief, harmless as it seemed, nearly cost me everything. I remember noticing little changes long before that scary episode. But back then, none of it seemed dramatic enough to worry about. There was the fatigue, yes, but it wasn't just tiredness. It was a kind of bone-deep exhaustion that didn't make sense. I was sleeping 7, sometimes 8 hours, yet waking up feeling like I'd run a marathon in my dreams. I blamed my age. I told myself, this is what being in your 60s feels like, right? I even joked with friends. I used to party on 4 hours of sleep. Now I need 4 hours just to recover from doing laundry. We all laughed, but deep down, something didn't sit right. Then came the shortness of breath. Not during exercise, just during ordinary activities. Walking to the mailbox felt oddly taxing. I'd pause halfway up the stairs, pretending to admire the family photos on the wall, when really, I was catching my breath. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was out of shape. Maybe I'd put on a few pounds. Maybe the weather was too humid. I had a reason for everything, except the truth. I also noticed my ankles were swelling more often, especially by evening. I'd come home, kick off my shoes, and see faint indents on my skin. It wasn't painful, but it was strange. I assumed it was water retention or poor circulation from sitting too long. I never once thought this could be my heart struggling. And in the night sweats, those were the most confusing. I'd wake up drenched, sheets clinging to my back. I wasn't sick. I wasn't menopausal. I thought maybe it was just bad dreams or a warm room. But looking back, those night sweats were my body's way of crying out for balance, desperately trying to regulate something deeper. There were also moments where I'd feel my heart flutter. It was skipping a beat or adding an extra one. It would last a second or two, and then stop. Again, I chalked it up to caffeine or stress. After all, who didn't feel their heart race once in a while? But these palpitations were becoming more frequent, quiet warnings that I chose to silence. One time, I remember standing in line at the pharmacy. I felt a lightheadedness come over me, just for a second, like I was about to black out. I leaned on the counter, steadied myself, and it passed. The pharmacist asked if I needed help, but I waved it off. Just hungry, I said, even though I'd eaten an hour ago. Deep down, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to open that door. But thing is, the human mind is excellent at rationalizing. We don't want to face what we fear. We tell ourselves stories that make the strange feel normal. But when those stories cover up dangerous symptoms, the cost can be deadly. Here's a list of the symptoms I experienced but wrongly blamed on aging. Persistent fatigue, not improved by rest, shortness of breath, even during light activities. Mild swelling in feet and ankles, especially at night. Occasional dizziness or lightheadedness, with no clear cause. Night sweats, despite a normal room temperature. Heart palpitations that seemed random but recurring. Mild chest pressure or discomfort, easily dismissed. Trouble sleeping flat, preferring extra pillows without knowing why. Every single one of these can be a silent indicator of heart trouble. But because they don't scream, because they don't come with pain or drama, they're easy to misinterpret. I'm sharing all of this with you not to scare you but to help you see what I couldn't. The heart is a master of disguise. Its signals aren't always loud, but they are consistent. They whisper through your routines. They nudge you when you bend down to tie your shoe or climb a few stairs. If you notice a change in what your body can do, listen to that change. I later learned from my cardiologist that many people over 60 ignore these exact signs. They assume it's just part of getting older, and by the time they seek help, the damage is already underway. That's the cruel trick of heart disease. Doesn't always hit like a thunderclap. Sometimes it seeps in quietly, inch by inch, until your body can't ignore it anymore. Had I gone in earlier when the first symptoms appeared, I could have started treatment sooner. I could have spared myself the months of uncertainty and the fear of what might come next. But I didn't know then what I know now. That's why I'm telling you, because maybe you felt it too. That slight tightness, that creeping fatigue, that moment where your breath felt too short for the task at hand. Don't brush it off. Don't call it just getting older. Getting older doesn't mean losing your breath walking across a room. It doesn't mean sleeping 9 hours and still being exhausted. And it certainly doesn't mean ignoring what your body is trying to tell you. In the next part of my story, I'll reveal the hidden red flags I saw in the mirror, the physical changes I wish I had recognized sooner, including changes in my skin, breathing patterns, and even how I slept. You might be shocked at what they really meant. The hidden red flags I saw in the mirror, what my skin, breath, and even sleep patterns were trying to tell me. I used to look in the mirror and see just another aging face staring back. A few more wrinkles here, a little more gray there. But what I didn't realize at the time, what I only learned later, was that my reflection was trying to tell me something far more urgent. My body had been giving me warnings. I just didn't know how to read them. It started with my skin color. I noticed that my complexion had become dull, almost pale, like I hadn't seen the sun in weeks, even though I had. There were mornings when I looked borderline grayish, not just tired looking, but almost washed out. I assumed I wasn't sleeping well, or maybe my diet was off, but that wasn't it. Turns out, changes in skin tone, particularly if you're looking pale, gray, or ashen, can be a sign that your blood isn't carrying enough oxygen, and that's often a red flag for poor circulation caused by an overworked or weakened heart. Even more alarming was what I saw in my lips and fingernails, things I'd never paid attention to before. There were moments, especially after climbing stairs or walking briskly, when my lips looked slightly bluish. It faded quickly, so I ignored it, and my fingernails sometimes had this faint purplish tint. Again, subtle, easy to dismiss. But those signs, they're clues. Clues that my blood wasn't being oxygenated properly. Another change happened when I was shaving one morning. I leaned in close to the mirror and noticed my neck looked puffier than usual. My jugular veins were more prominent, as if they were slightly bulging. I thought I was imagining things. But later, a doctor told me this could be a sign of increased pressure in the heart or lungs. Something was backing up. Something wasn't flowing right. But the mirror didn't just show me physical symptoms. It revealed the effects of restless sleep, 2 dark circles under my eyes, puffiness in my face, and a general look of weariness that didn't go away. Even on weekends, I had started sleeping with more pillows, stacking them up so I could rest, almost in a seated position. I told myself it was for comfort, maybe even heartburn. But what I didn't know then was that heart failure can make it hard to breathe when lying flat. The fluid builds up. You get that choking, heavy feeling, and without realizing it, you start sleeping more upright just to catch your breath. That's not just aging. That's your heart working overtime while you're trying to rest. Then there was my breathing itself. I'd catch myself huffing slightly after basic activities. Not wheezing, not gasping, just taking in air a little heavier than normal. And sometimes, when I lay down, I'd wake up feeling like I hadn't truly caught my breath. I thought maybe it was allergies. But there were no other symptoms, no runny nose, no congestion. Just that ever-present sense that something was weighing on my lungs. A particularly strange moment came when I noticed that I was snoring more than usual and, sometimes waking myself up. My wife told me I'd occasionally stop breathing for a second and then gasp, as if I was choking. That terrified me. I was diagnosed later with sleep apnea, which, in many cases, is connected to heart strain. Sleep apnea isn't just about bad sleep. It can actually cause or worsen heart disease over time. And let's not forget the sudden weight gain. I'm not talking about overeating or holiday pounds. This was different. Within a week or two, I felt puffier, my clothes were tighter, my shoes didn't fit right, but I hadn't changed my eating habits. Turns out, I was retaining fluid especially around the abdomen and legs. Another classic but sneaky sign that your heart isn't pumping efficiently, to the untrained eye. All of this just looks like someone getting older. But if you know what to look for, if you really pay attention, your body is trying to warn you. Remember one night I stood in front of the mirror brushing my teeth. My eyes looked sunken, my face looked drawn, my breath was slightly labored. I stared at myself and whispered, "This isn't just age, is it?" And it wasn't. After my diagnosis, I realized I'd been living with mild heart failure symptoms for months, maybe even years. They crept in slowly, one by one, camouflaged by the slow, subtle nature of time. That's the danger. Heart disease doesn't always arrive like a thunderstorm. Sometimes it's more like a fog rolling in silently until you're completely surrounded. So here's what I urge you to do. The next time you look in the mirror, really look. Are your lips or nails turning slightly blue or purple? Are your eyelids puffy in the morning? Are your veins in the neck more visible than before? Have you gained unexplained weight, especially in your belly or ankles? Are you stacking pillows just to sleep through the night? Does your face look more tired than you feel? These may seem minor on their own, but together, they tell a story. And if you're over 60, you cannot afford to ignore that story. A cardiologist later told me something that stuck with me. The mirror is often the first medical exam you'll ever get, but only if you know what to look for. I wish I had known sooner. But if my story helps even one person stop, look, and listen to what their reflection is saying, then maybe it happened for a reason. Maybe this quiet battle I fought can be someone else's wake-up call. In the next section, I'll walk you through the one test that revealed everything, the simple, painless check that turned my suspicions into a life-saving diagnosis. Don't miss it. It could be the test that saves your life too. The test that changed my life forever. How one simple check revealed a ticking time bomb in my chest. I wish I could tell you that I went to the doctor the moment I realized something was wrong, but the truth, it took several months. I was hesitant, maybe even scared. What if I was just being paranoid? What if it was all in my head? But deep down, I knew. My body had been whispering, the signs were piling up, and eventually, the fear of not knowing became worse than the fear of what I might find. That's when I booked the appointment. It was a Tuesday, oddly enough. The same day of the week, I first noticed something off. I remember sitting in the waiting room, trying to calm the whirlwind in my chest. My heart wasn't racing, but my thoughts were. The nurse called me in, took my blood pressure, it was higher than normal, took my pulse a little irregular, but again, nothing dramatic, nothing that screamed emergency. Then the doctor came in. She listened carefully as I described what had been happening. The strange fatigue, the breathlessness, the chest pressure, the swelling, the sleep changes. She didn't dismiss me. She didn't say, "Oh, it's just age." No, her eyes narrowed, and I could see it on her face. Concern. "Let's run a few tests," she said, "just to be safe." The first test she ordered was an electrocardiogram, ECG, or EKG. If you've never had one, let me tell you, it's completely painless. You lie down, they place a few sticky pads on your chest, arms and legs, and wires connect the pads to a machine. It records the electrical activity of your heart. It only takes a few minutes, but what it revealed changed everything. When the results came back, the doctor looked serious. "Your ECG shows signs of strain," she said. "Your heart isn't beating in a completely normal rhythm, and there may be signs of left ventricular hypertrophy." I blinked. What does that mean? It means your heart is working harder than it should be, and that could be due to high blood pressure or even early heart failure. My stomach dropped. Still, I didn't feel sick. I wasn't in pain. Could this really be happening? She explained that the ECG was just the beginning. She ordered more tests, blood work, a chest x-ray, and most importantly, an echocardiogram, which is essentially an ultrasound of the heart. The echocardiogram was eye-opening. It showed that my heart's left ventricle, the part that pumps oxygen-rich blood to the body, was thicker than normal. That meant my heart had been struggling for quite some time. The fluid retention in my legs, the pressure in my chest, the breathlessness, it all made sense now. My heart had been fighting to keep up, quietly waving red flags that I kept ignoring. There was also evidence of reduced ejection fraction. That's the measurement of how much blood the left ventricle pumps out with each beat. In a healthy heart, the number is typically 50% or higher. Mine just under 40%. That meant my heart wasn't pumping efficiently. That's the hallmark of heart failure. I sat there, stunned. The doctor looked at me gently and said, "You caught this just in time. If you had waited any longer, we might be having a very different conversation." That hit me like a freight train. I thought back to every moment I told myself, "It's nothing, just getting older." Every morning I ignored the heaviness in my chest. Every night I told myself I was just tired. All the while my heart was struggling, silently waiting for me to pay attention. The truth is, tests don't just detect problems, they save lives. I was lucky. Lucky that I got checked when I did. Lucky that I had a doctor who took my symptoms seriously. Lucky that the damage was manageable and hadn't reached a point of no return. What scared me most was that I didn't feel sick. I wasn't doubled over in pain. I wasn't passing out. And yet, my heart was under serious strain. That's the danger of heart disease. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. It whispers. And if you don't listen, you may not get another chance. After the diagnosis, my life changed quickly. I was prescribed medications to help my heart pump more efficiently. I started beta blockers and ACE inhibitors. I had to monitor my blood pressure, track my sodium intake, and check my weight every day to make sure I wasn't retaining fluid. I was referred to a cardiologist and enrolled in a cardiac rehab program to help me rebuild strength safely. More importantly, I started living intentionally. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat, I stopped taking them for granted. The irony? I used to avoid doctors out of fear of bad news. Now, I realize that knowledge is power. The ECG, the echo, the blood tests, those weren't just medical procedures. They were lifelines. They gave me a second chance. They gave me time. If you're watching this and wondering whether you should get checked, stop wondering. Go. Ask your doctor for an ECG. If you're experiencing any strange symptoms, no matter how small, get an echocardiogram. Get your blood pressure checked. Ask for a BNP blood test. It can reveal elevated levels of a hormone that spikes when your heart is under strain. Don't let fear hold you back. Because the real fear, that's living with undiagnosed heart disease. That's lying awake at night, wondering if your next breath will come easy or not. That's the weight of uncertainty, pressing on your chest harder than any symptom ever could. You don't have to wait for a crisis. You can be proactive. You can catch things early. You can take control of your health before your heart decides. It's had enough. I did. And I'm here today to tell you, it made all the difference. In the next and final section of this story, I'll share what I do now, every day, to protect my heart, habits I've adopted, foods I eat and avoid, the small changes that make a big difference. Because once you know better, you have the chance to live better. What I do now every day to protect my heart, the habits I live by now to avoid a second wake-up call, and how you can too. After everything I went through, the fatigue, the warning signs, the diagnosis, my life changed. It had to. I didn't just walk out of that doctor's office with a stack of prescriptions. I walked out with a new mission, to treat every day like a second chance. I knew I couldn't go back to how things were before. I had ignored my body's whispers for too long now. I had to listen carefully, every single day. So, I started making changes, not all at once, not perfectly but consistently. And today, I want to share exactly what I do now to keep my heart strong, steady, and silent in the good way. 1. I start every morning with mindfulness, not my phone. I used to roll out of bed and dive straight into the noisy emails, headlines, to-do lists. But now, I start with something else, stillness. Just 5 to 10 minutes of quiet breathing, with my hand on my chest. It's not just for comments, to check in with my body. How's my breathing? Any tightness? Any unusual fatigue? I learned that awareness is the first tool of prevention. My body speaks. Now I listen. To my plate looks different, cleaner, greener, smarter. Before my scare, I was the kind of guy who didn't think twice about sodium, saturated fat, or portion sizes. A little processed meat here, a salty snack there, it added up. Not anymore now. My meals follow a few simple rules. Half the plate is vegetables, especially leafy greens, broccoli, and beets, great for blood flow. A quarter is lean protein, grilled chicken, salmon, legumes, or tofu. A quarter is whole grains like brown rice or quinoa. I cook with olive oil instead of butter, use herbs instead of salt, and avoid anything with ingredients I can't pronounce. I've also cut back on sugar and refined carbs, which can lead to inflammation. That was hard. I used to have a sweet tooth. But now, I treat sugar like a rare guest, not a roommate. And guess what? My energy is up, my weight is down, and my blood pressure has stabilized. Food became my medicine because it is. 3. I move every day even when I don't feel like it. Before my diagnosis, I thought exercise had to be intense. If I wasn't drenched in sweat or in a gym, I figured it didn't count. That belief nearly kept me sedentary and sick. Now, I follow a gentler, but more powerful rule. Move intentionally, every day. I walk 30 minutes each morning. Sometimes I break it into 2 15-minute sessions if I'm tired. I take the stairs. When I can, I stretch, I garden, I dance when my favorite oldies come on. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to happen. And no, I don't push myself on the days my body says not today. I've learned to respect my limits while still staying in motion. For I drink water like it's my job. Sounds basic, right? But staying hydrated has helped regulate my blood pressure, reduced swelling, and even curbed unhealthy cravings. I aim for 6 to 8 glasses a day, more if it's hot or I've been active. I keep a glass on my nightstand and a bottle in my bag. No sugary drinks, no energy sodas. Just good old water and a squeeze of lemon when I want a boost. 5. I take my medications religiously. Used to be the kind of person who skipped pills, forgot them, took them when I remembered, but now, I have alarms, a pill box, reminders on my fridge. Why? Because those tiny tablets are keeping my heart from having to work overtime. They're giving my heart a break, and after what it's been through, it deserves one. 6. I monitor, track, and stay in touch with my heart once a week. I check my blood pressure, my weight, my resting heart rate, how I'm breathing at night. I keep a small journal. Nothing complicated, just a few notes. If something feels off, I don't wait. I call my doctor, I ask questions. I show up to appointments. I used to feel embarrassed calling my doctor over small things. Not anymore. I've learned that being proactive is powerful and, sometimes, life-saving. 7. I protect my peace because stress is a silent killer. After my diagnosis, I realized how much tension I had been carrying. Financial stress, family worries, sleepless nights. And while we can't eliminate stress completely, we can manage it. Now, I say no to unnecessary commitments, meditate for 10 minutes a day, journal when I'm overwhelmed, limit screen time before bed, spend time in nature every weekend. Let me tell you, peace of mind is a gift to the heart. 8. I prioritize connection because love heals. The heart isn't just a pump, it's emotional too. Studies show that loneliness is as damaging as smoking or obesity when it comes to heart health. I make time for my kids. I call old friends. I volunteer once a month at a community center. I make space for laughter, for conversation, for life. Being around people I love literally makes my heart beat better. You can feel it, and so can your heart. 9. I live on purpose every day. Surviving a heart scare gave me a kind of clarity I'd never known before. I don't waste time on petty arguments. I don't put off joy. I look at every day as a blessing because it is. Now, I start each morning with the same question. What will I do today to take care of my heart and the people I love? Some days it's a healthy meal. Other days it's a walk, a laugh, a heartfelt conversation. Every day is a choice. I choose health. Final thoughts. I'm not perfect. I still have days when I slip, when I feel tired, when the old habits call my name. But I never go back to ignoring the signs. I never tell myself, it's probably nothing. I never again underestimate the importance of listening to my body, and neither should you. Your heart is working for you, every second of every day. It deserves your care, your attention, your love. Take it from someone who almost waited too long. Don't wait for a heart attack to change your life. Let awareness change it first.